Once upon a time, there was a King Suddhodana and Queen Mahamaya who lived in a place called Kapilvastu. Queen Mahamaya gave birth to a lovely baby boy at Lumbini Gardens, named Siddhartha. Sadly, the queen died 7 days later after giving birth. When Siddhartha grew up, a wise man named Kala Devala informed the king that he would witness things that would make him miserable and lead him to flee to the jungle. As a result, the king never let Siddhartha leave the royal walls. Siddhartha was a bright and cheerful youngster who was compassionate and caring. Siddhartha and his cousin Devdutta were walking one day. Devdutta observed a swan and shot it down on the spot. When Siddhartha saw the injured bird, he was terrified. He drew the arrow from his body and applied some herbs to the wound. Devdutta wanted the bird as he shot him, but Siddhartha declined. As a result, they proceeded to court. The wise man in the court said that the swan belonged to the person who saved it, not to the one who attempted to take its life. The prince matured into a young man. King Suddhodana wedded him to the lovely princess Yashodhara. The king thought that when Siddhartha married, he would never leave his home. Siddhartha, on the other hand, felt dissatisfied at the palace. "Let's go for a trip outside the palace," he urged his servant Channa one day. On his way, the prince came upon an elderly man who was hunched over. The prince had never encountered an elderly person before. He said, "What is that, Channa?" "This is an elderly gentleman," Channa observed. "One day, Prince, we'll all be elderly." The prince returned to his palace, distraught. Siddhartha went out again after a few days. This time, he encountered a sick guy who was wailing in agony. "Why is that man crying?" Siddhartha wondered, having never seen a sick person before. "He's unwell and due to severe pain he is wailing," Channa responded. Siddhartha was unhappy and returned to the palace. When Siddhartha stepped outside the following time, he observed a group of people dragging a dead body. "One day, we shall all die," Channa said Siddhartha, explaining that he was seeing a dead person. Siddhartha knew his father had kept him in the palace to keep him safe from these dangers. "Do we all have to get old, ill, and die?" he wondered to himself. "Doesn't there seem to be any other options?" Siddhartha left once more. He noticed a man with a shaved head, orange robes, and a ball in his hand this time. The man appeared to be in a good mood. "Who is that man?" he inquired of Channa. "That's a sensible man who had abandoned everything and gone to the wilderness to seek happiness," Channa said. Siddhartha pondered all he had witnessed. After that, he made the decision to leave home in search of happiness. So, one night, while his wife and son, Rahula, were sleeping, Siddhartha secretly departed the palace with his devoted servant, Channa. They went together till they reached the Anoma river. Siddhartha removed his imperial garments there. He handed Channa his clothing and his horse to return to the palace. He then donned an orange robe, shaved his long hair, and walked out holding a ball. "Do you know the route to happiness?" Siddhartha inquired of each person he met. Nobody could tell him, though. Finally, he sat beneath a Bodhi tree and attempted to solve the problem on his own. He started meditation. His journey came to an end after several days. People began to refer to him as Gautama Buddha since he had matured into a knowledgeable man. All animals were cherished by Buddha, and he treated them with compassion. Devdutta, his jealous cousin, once dispatched wild elephants to attack Buddha. The elephants, on the other hand, knelt down to Buddha when they saw him. Gautama Buddha had a large number of followers. He moved from place to place, sharing what he had learned with others. His pupils were divided into Sangha groups. He advocated that pleasure could be attained by being satisfied with what one had and treating all beings with kindness. When Buddha returned to Kapilvastu, he was welcomed by his father, wife, and son, as well as many others. Ananda, one of his relatives, became Buddha's devoted follower and cared for him as he grew older. Buddha continued to preach for another 45 years. He was already 80 years old at the time. Finally, in Kushinara, he laid down beneath the sala trees and exhaled his last breath. Conclusion of the story. The existence of mortals in this world is troublesome, fleeting, and coupled with anguish, the Buddha remarked. Because there is no way for people who have been born to escape dying, death comes with age to each living creature. Wisdom, kindness, patience, generosity, and compassion were among the values he emphasized. All Buddhists are bound by 5 moral commandments, which prohibit taking the lives of living things.